So we're going to pour a sample board and we're going to do a side-by-side comparison of a higher viscosity product like E4E100S with pigment mixed basically now and Rubix on the same sample board. So we're going to get to see a couple different things. One, we're going to get to see what the pigment powders do, the exact same colors in two different types of epoxy. You're going to get to see what the pigment float means with Rubix. The kind of the holographic effect or the three-dimensional effect that it can create. Be nice to see it on a side-by-side comparison. We're going to do it today so that hopefully the board will be nice and set up and everything tomorrow so I can show you what everything looks like, what the comets can look like, and the difference between a higher viscosity epoxy and one that's meant to run out metallic systems. Not that you can't do metallics, which with any of these products, I've got guys that'll run countertops and systems out with S. But they do different things, obviously. So we're going to do some mixing and we're going to do some pouring and kind of go from there. All right, so we're going to start by kicking on our scale and splitting off some epoxy. I've got XR sitting here. I'm not going to open that kit because it's a brand new kit and I don't want to pay for it and pull it off the shelves. So we're going to experiment with Rubix and S. This kit of S has already been used at a training event, so we're going to pull that off. Some of you might know what it means already. Some of you might not, so we'll go ahead and talk about it. When I say the word viscosity, it means thickness of the product, flowability of the product. The example I often give to contractors and stuff is if you're comparing an E4E100XR to an E4E100S, think the difference between a 10W30 motor oil and a 5W20 motor oil. It's just a thinner weight product. It's a thinner viscosity. It's got more flowability. It's going to be there's going to be more melt and movement out of a product like this than there is out of a product like this. Anybody that has worked with it so far has, very clearly seen that. Now the reason somebody might opt for a metallic or a countertop with a higher viscosity product like countertop in a box or S is because the more the installer, the more that the artist, the designer, they input into that piece, whether it be a floor or a countertop or a sample board or whatever the case may be, the more their design is going to stick around with a higher viscosity product. With something like XR or Rubix, it's got so much melt that regardless of the input you put into the board, that epoxy is going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you when it comes to the final outcome of the design because it's going to move so much. It's going to melt together so much. Now we're going to do our best to split this off. It's kind of hard to work in small quantities with epoxy like this, but we're going to do our best. We're going to pull off just a few ounces. 2 ounces of each of my highlight colors and 25 ounces of my flood coat on each epoxy. So each epoxy is going to get a flood coat and then 2 highlight colors so we can see the way the comets react and we can see the way highlight colors react. Ooh, almost spilled there. Now that we've got our epoxies split out, our 2 highlight colors, and our flood coats, Rubix is going to stay on my left, and then S is going to stay on my right over here. I'm going to use satin white gray because the lighter grays have a tendency to show the most when it comes to comets in my experience. So I really want to see that effect tomorrow morning. Now we're going to tear this. Remember, 1 8-ounce container of mica will pigment 1 full 3-gallon kit. I'm not going to be super precise here. I'm just going to add approximately the same amount to each. I might not have mentioned it yet, but the highlight colors that we're going with are bright gold and dark yellow. I think that's going to be a cool contrasting combination that I haven't seen before, and I always like to do things that I haven't seen before. Keep everything segregated, and now we mix. Air bubbles are obviously a common concern when it comes to epoxy in general. especially on design coats or money coats for metallics. So how we mix is as important as anything else. All right, we've got our small colors mixed. We're gonna go ahead and mix our flood colors. Tri-grips, I bought a set. They're fantastic for pouring sample boards. You can immediately see a difference between the two as they've sat here. So same mix, same pigments, but look at the difference between the Rubix and the S. See how many more bubbles it's holding on to, and the viscosity. I know I've said the word viscosity too many times. We'll start turning these into a drinking game. We'll do a like Pee-wee's Playhouse award of the day. Viscosity. Go ahead and catalyze, same way we did before, do our mixes and do our flood coats. What's gonna happen here is we're gonna just kind of pick a dividing line. We're gonna flood coat one side, flood coat the other side, let them come together, and that again is gonna show us three really cool things. One, it's gonna show us what S will do on this side, the amount of comments and stuff we're gonna get, and the way that you can make that move. We're gonna watch how Rubix acts this way, and then we're gonna get to see how they interact right in the middle. All right, we're gonna tear that. Put that guy back. We're going to do our S first. There's our mixed and catalyzed S. Way too much as a flood coat here, but who cares? It's my mess to clean up, not yours. Mine, not yours. Yeah, anyways, let's do the Rubix. So you can already see how Rubix incorporates micas into it. They just dissolve and melt. The viscosity, right? That's our word of the day. Viscosity is noticeably thinner. All right, that's our Rubix ready. Same thing as before. All right, so a good scientist does a few things. I don't know what they are because I'm not a good scientist, but I know one of them is set a hypothesis, which my hypothesis was that more of the design that I impart into the S is going to stick around, whereas more of the design that I put into the Rubix is going to melt out, and the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? I used the same technique with the same gloved hand. More of the design that I put in with the S is sticking around, whereas the Rubix, while beautiful, is definitely doing its own thing. And where they come together, it's kind of creating a cool effect. So we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. We're going to give it a fighting chance, and I'm going to try to do everything in sequence if I don't forget. But remember, like I said, I'm a shit scientist. So I'm going to mix up the dark yellow first with the S, then I'm going to mix up the dark yellow with the Rubix. Now I'm going to jump back over, mix up and apply the bright gold with the S, and do the same with the Rubix and apply them to the board in the same sequence. So nothing sits in the container, everything gets the same type of mix, everything gets applied to the board in the same way. When it comes to metallics, a lot of guys get intimidated by it. Newer guys get intimidated by it because it's just mixing up product and putting it on the floor. You can move it however you like. Yes, people move metallics with 18-inch rollers, 3/8 snap. Yes, people move metallics with T-bars. Gloved hands, fingers on sample boards. There isn't really a wrong answer. When I move them, I like to use a 4-inch little foam roller. What we're gonna do here is try to keep everything the same, like I said, and I'm only gonna move it with its mix stick. So I'm gonna apply a vein, some highlight colors, and try to give it the same smoke effect on each side and see how each moves independently. You can apply product however you like, little bit at a time, or big bold stripes. If I want to leave this big yellow stripe, I'll just touch the edges. Right? Whereas if I want more of a muddled smoke effect, I'll come right up through the middle and move everything together. The more I work these products, the more they will blend and become a different thing, whereas the less I touch them, the more each independent color is going to just melt the edges together. All right, fair is fair. We're going to move them the same way. That's our gold. Right down the middle a bit to help those two kind of play around together. All right, last one of our pigments is the bright gold in the Rubix. All right, everybody, well, that's what we got for today. We had a hypothesis, right? Even though I couldn't I couldn't produce it. I couldn't pronounce it half the time. This is the problem you guys have when you start giving a hillbilly a camera. I have to start filming myself. So we had a hypothesis, right? Hypothesis was we're going to have more of our pigment and more of our design stick around in the S because it's higher, what? Viscosity, that's right. And Rubix is going to move a whole lot more and it's going to get that pigment float. You know, was that a super important thing to test? Not necessarily, but it's interesting to talk about and it's a fun discussion and you get to kind of see the way that the pigments interact with things. Lessons we learned, conclusions. We learned the difference between the viscosities of epoxy, which one I might select depending on the aesthetic and the design that I'm going for. Is it the wrong answer to use S on a metallic? No. Is it the right answer to use Rubix? Yeah, it always is the right answer to use Rubix. But no, I mean, it just depends on what your contractor's going for. We want to hydrate our pigments when we're running anything like XR, countertop in a box, S, and it's not the wrong answer to do it to Rubix either. It's just not as necessary. When we add color to epoxies, when we add color to our product, whether it be a mica, whether it be a liquid pigment, we always want to add it to our part A. We never want to introduce anything to our part B until we're ready to hit the clock and start laying our product, whether it be a countertop or a floor or something in between. Yeah, so that's it. Great. I appreciate everybody. And hopefully now, tomorrow's Ethan will have the sample board and be able to hold it up and kind of show you guys. For some reason, my camera just flipped up, right? Whatever. See you guys. All right, here's your next day results. You can see the amount of pigment float and the dramatic flow that you get out of a purpose-built epoxy that's meant for a metallic floor. It's not the wrong answer to use S, but look at those results.